God and humanity begins with the creation story. It's a story of care and love. It's a story of God reaching out to us. It's a story of God being for us and with us. The story kicks off with God creating the earth, and in the beginning we discover that He is the Almighty who creates with just a word. Genesis 1 verse 1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. It's almost too grand for our human minds to grasp, but God has always been there. He's greater than time. He stands outside of time and space. In His power, God's Spirit hovered over the waters, and with a word He commanded, "Let there be light," and there was light. He separated the waters from the land. He placed the sun, moon, and stars in their positions. Can you feel the weight of God's greatness in the first part of the creation story? The creation story ends with God creating mankind. This God is so great that He personally stepped into each of our worlds. Psalm 8 refers to us as the crown of His creation. For God created us to be in relationship with Him. We were made in His image and likeness, and this is why David writes in Psalm 8 that He has crowned us with glory and honor. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image and in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." We carry His DNA. Our purpose is to live in relationship with Him. We are part of His story, and then we must allow Him to also be part of our story. We are made to live in relationship with God. That is the environment in which we thrive and grow. Think of gardening. Some plants need direct sunlight to grow, and if you plant them in the shade, they will never reach their full potential. We were created to live from relationship with Him. This is the environment in which we flourish and reach our full potential. God wanted His story to be woven into the story of mankind. He Himself wants to be the garden in which we walk. From the beginning of the creation story, God intended for humanity to live in relationship with Him. But then the story of God and mankind took a sad turn when humans decided to break the relationship. Adam and Eve decided that they must choose to make their own ego their habitat and to become their own God. Humans chose to be in control of their own lives, and this choice created distance between God and humanity, leading to a path of self-destruction. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This is the lie that the enemy comes and tells to Adam and Eve. But God never stopped reaching out to us. He still desired to have a relationship with us. God chose to live among His people, continuously reaching out. Throughout the Old Testament, He kept knocking at our door. He chose Abraham and his descendants and made a covenant with them, promising to be their God and to protect them. We read this in Genesis 15 verse 1. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. "Do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield, your very great reward." Through Moses, God had the people build a tabernacle so He could travel with them from Egypt to guide them and to be with them. No wonder Moses was called a friend of God. In Exodus, we read, whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshipped, each at the entrance of their tent. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp, but his young aide Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. God spoke to the people through Abraham, Moses, David, and the prophets. The people tried to keep the law and to offer sacrifices to God, but it was not enough to restore the relationship with God. There was a final chapter in the story of God and mankind that was needed. And in this final chapter of His story, God spoke through Jesus. Jesus came to finally restore the relationship between us and God. Hebrews 1, we read, "In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son, whom He anointed heir of all things, and through whom also He made the universe." The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of His being, sustaining all things by His powerful word. After He had provided purification for sins, He sat down at the right hand of the Majesty in heaven. In the 33 years of Jesus' life on earth, He showed us who God is. He showed us the character of God. The Son reflects the character, power, and life of God. The headline of this final beautiful chapter of this story is God is love. There are so many examples where Jesus, during his time on earth, involved himself in the pain and the needs of people, showing care, love, counsel, and touch. One such story is the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "No, someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." There was a large crowd around Jesus, but there was one woman who saw him as her source and reached out to him. Then we see the moment when her faith and Jesus' care meets. Many people touched Jesus, but her faith in him touched his heart. The climax of Jesus' story in the human life is where he showed his love for us by dying on the cross. Jesus broke down all distance between God and mankind. The writer of Hebrews says he gave his life so that we could be purified from sin. We could never get to a place where we were good enough or deserved to be in relationship with God. The sacrifices and the law could never fully restore the relationship. But through Jesus, the Lamb who became the final sacrifice on the cross, he declared us good enough to be in relationship with him, so that with Jesus we can take our place in the presence of God, clothed with glory and honor. Today we experience his glory in our story. Today we know him as the God of second chances when his hand touches our pain. I experienced this firsthand. For the first 22 years of my life, I lived from a place of religion and not intimate relationship with God. And because of that, I lived a life of sin and self-destruction. But all of that changed in an instant when I had a personal encounter with Jesus. He showed me who he created me to be, and I now live in my second chance, in a life of grace and abundance, a life drenched in his presence. You are number one on his agenda. Just like the woman who bled, you are not just part of the crowd. Jesus knows you by name, and his love flows towards you and flows through you. He is writing his story in your life. He's always with you. You only need to reach out your hand. I'm reminded of a line in the movie August Rush where the character says, "The music is all around us. All you have to do is listen." God is in every moment of your everyday. Will you become aware of his presence? Will you become aware of his voice?